Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter. I realize a lot of you veterans probably already know all of this, but I see a lot of new players who are not utilizing the feline meal skills that you get for eating at the fondue kitchen. So I wanted to go through them and explain what each one does. The game does a pretty good job, but for certain ones it just says like it boosts your attack, but it doesn't really tell you by how much. So by going through the list, I hope you get a better understanding of what type of food you might want to eat for. Okay, the order is going to be all over the place. I apologize, but I'm trying to group these. So these ones are the ones that say lucky in there. So we have the ultra lucky cat, which will always give you one extra reward slot when you clear a quest. Lucky cat is the same thing, but it gives you a 50% chance. Crazy lucky cat sounds like it's also related to materials, but it's actually about zenny. You get a chance of having 50% more, 75% more, or double the zenny reward. It's just completely random between those three. And you also have Unlucky Cat, so if you eat for this you will get drunk, which is kind of funny, but you will start the quest with either or 25 health or 25 stamina or both, and if you're a Prowler it's either 25 health and or no acorns. So if you're a Prowler, don't eat if you have the chance of getting Unlucky Cat, and if you're a Hunter, make sure you have an Ancient Potion to make up for any type of demerits you might start with. Okay, keeping with the theme for rewards, we also have the Felyne Carver High and Low. The high gives you a 50% chance of being able to carve one extra time, so 4 times instead of 3, stuff like that. And Felyne Carver Low gives a 25% chance of that happening. Okay, when it comes to items breaking, we have the Felyne Hornblower, which will make it so if your item is decided that it's going to break, which is a random chance, there's a 25% chance on top of that that you'll be able to negate that and it won't break. Same thing for Woodsman, it means a 25% chance of not breaking a pickaxe or bug net or any of those breakable items. Honestly speaking, they're pretty useless, but if it's just an extra bonus one that activates, hey, why not? Okay, these next 4 is all about flinching. So you have the Felyne Supercat and the Strongcat. The Supercat makes it so you only use half stamina when you're transporting, like carrying an egg, and you will not flinch if you get hit with light damage. The Strongcat is a weaker version of this, so just no flinching if you're hit by light damage. Definitely eat for Supercat if you're doing a transporter quest. While kinda useless, the Felyne Cliffhanger and Gripper is pretty much the same version for transporting, but this is one that applies to when you're climbing walls or jumping across the ceiling. The next 3 have to do with gestures. So the Kickboxer makes it so if you hit the kick or special button, it'll do 5 times power and it will send people flying hilariously. The Felyne Fighter is the same thing but for Shadow Box, and Cool Cat, if you do a kickback gesture for 5 seconds, for the next 30 seconds it'll give you plus 15 attack. Not really practical, but if you have it activated and the monster moves out of the area, kick back for 5 seconds and enjoy a small boost of power. Okay, the next 2 have to do with mounting monsters. So the Felyne Rider makes it so you do 25% more mount damage. This is pretty much the same skill as the Mount Master for the Hunters. And the Felyne Hostler is a real useless one. What this does is if any person is on top of a monster and allies like the comrades hit the monster to help contribute to the mounting gauge, they'll just be doing more contribution. So really useless, but it's there nonetheless. Okay, the next 2 are some of the most useful ones. This is Felyne Defender High and Low. So with High, you have a 1 in 4 chance, so 25%, of taking only 70% damage when you get hit. For Felyne Defender Low, it's still pretty good. It's a 1 out of 8 chance of taking only 70% damage. This can definitely be the difference between carding or remaining alive when you're up against stronger monsters. Speaking about survival, the next 3 have to do with escaping a monster. The Felyne Black Belt makes it so when you guard or evade, you lose 25% less stamina than you normally do. The Felyne Escape Artist makes it so you only use half the stamina normally to run away from a monster, and Felyne Slider just makes it so that you only need to mash the buttons half as much as normal if you're pinned down by a monster. We also have Felyne Riser High and Low, so this will just elongate the amount of invincibility frames you have when you're getting up after getting knocked down. Riser is 3 times the amount of frames, Low is 2 times, but honestly you can delay your get up in this game, so I really don't think that it's that necessary. Felyne Super Carver just makes it so that if you get hit by a small attack like from a small monster when you're carving, you won't get knocked out of your animation, and Felyne Lander makes it so that when you jump off a cliff and you hit the ground, you don't stumble. Okay, the next 2 skills have to do with the monsters that you have to fight. So when you go in there with at least one person in the group has Felyne Weakener active, what it does is make it so that the monster, which always varies in size from small, normal, or large, it can never be larger than the average size. So it's more likely than not, it'll be below average. So it'll be weaker, which means the hunt will go faster. You also have Felyne Game Changer, so if you see that danger sign in an unstable condition, it means that there's definitely going to be another monster who's going to interrupt your hunt and get in the way. So try to make sure you don't eat for Game Changer if you don't want extra surprises during the quest. And sticking with the theme of skills that activate at the very start of a quest, we have 4 of them over here. We have Felyne Supplier. What this does is it makes it so all the supply items are immediately delivered at the very start of a quest, not supple items. Nice Gaijin Hunter classic spelling mistake there. Next one we have is Felyne Explorer. So if you're doing a quest where you can start in a random area, it means that you'll always start in the hidden area, which is not accessible after the quest starts. So if you want to get some really nice gathering and items, then definitely eat for Explorer. Then you have Felyne Oracle, which will show you the position of the monster on the map for the first 30 seconds of the hunt. And Felyne Booster, which is for the first 10 minutes. It'll give you a measly +3 attack, but +10 defense. Okay, moving on, we have 2 skills that have to do with how a monster notices you. So if you have Felyne Provoker, it means that you're more likely than not going to get hate from the monster. Hate just means that the monster is going to be targeting you and not the other players. So it actually could be pretty useful, especially if you're a hammer user. Felyne Courage is definitely a forgettable skill. All it does is make it so that your hunter does not flinch when you're discovered by a monster for the first time. Big whoop. Okay, now moving into the theme of items and getting items, we have 4 skills here. We have Felyne Combiner High and Low. All this does is affect the combination success rate when you're out on the field. So plus 20% success rate for Combiner High and 10% for Low. Then we have Felyne Charisma, so there's that veggie elder you can talk to who will give you random items. If you have this on, you'll have the max amount of times. I think it's 6 times, but I could be wrong. Okay, and the final one is Felyne Gatherer. This is kind of like having Gathering +1 if you are a hunter. It just means that you're more likely than not going to be able to get 1 or 2 extra items when you're gathering from a spot. Okay, now we do have 2 skills that affect the sharpness of your weapon. We have Felyne Deflector, which all it does is negate the double amount of sharpness that you lose when you bounce and attack. So it says 50% sharpness lost during bounce, but really you're doing double anyways, so it just negates it. Felyne Bulldozer just is a really weird one. So if you bounce and attack, if you follow up with another attack right away, it'll get +5 sharpness. This just means that if you're right on the line and you hit a monster and you bounce off, if you don't stop and you just keep attacking, you may be able to go and not bounce off on that follow-up attack. Okay, as we move on, these are going to get a little bit harder to group, but these are ones that affect your potency of stuff. So Felyne Medic affects your healing items. So if you do any type of healing item, be it an herb or a potion, it will be 10% more potent. And if you use an antidote herb or bitterbug on yourself, it will always work. Felyne Pyro is a very good one if you're using bombs or blasts. What it does is it changes every single large bomb you have or you place. It becomes a plus version. So this is really good if you're doing sleep bombing. And if you have a weapon with blast, it increases it by 10%. This does have a cap out though if you pair it up with Bombardier, but definitely it could be fun to mix in together. Then finally we have Felyne Specialist, which increases your status attack potency by 12.5%. Moving on, we have the ones for gunners. So we have Sharpshooter, which just gives you a flat out 10% boost to all your normal shots if you're a bowgun user, so very good. Felyne Temper, which what it does is it adds 5% damage to your shots and arrows, but also adds an extra level of deviation. So very good if you're using a pierce shot, so eat for that if you're doing pierce, or Sharpshooter if you're doing normal shot. And then if you're a cat, you definitely want to be eating for Felyne Hurler, because while it does increase the damage of your projectile items, which is kind of dumb because they're pretty weak to begin with, if you're a Prowler, it gives you 10% damage increase on all your boomerang attacks, which is huge. Moving on with all the buffing, if you're a gun lance user or if you do a lot of explosive shots, you definitely want to look at Felyne Bombardier. This does a 10% increased damage on ballistas and gun lance shells, and for crag shots, cannonball shots, and even the charge blade impact files, it does an additional 15% damage. Then we have Felyne Slugger, which just gives you 10% more stun damage, which honestly is not a real big deal, and I wouldn't worry about it even if you're a hammer user. And Felyne Heroics, which is great if you know how to do it right, but if you're under 10 health, which is like a sliver of health, then you get a plus 35% attack boost. Really great for speed running, or if you know how to get yourself down really low without getting hit, it's a fantastic way to go. Okay, now moving into some of the more game system related stuff, we have Felyne Exchanger, which if you're looking to buff your HR, this is what you want to be eating for, because it does give you 50% additional contribution points towards villages, and also 50% more HR points. For Felyne Trainer, this is what you want if you're leveling up your cat. It will give 150%, so 50% additional experience for all cats that are with you. So anyone that you have with you as a Palico, or if you're a Prowler, it'll give yourself 50% more experience points. So definitely eat for that, especially if you're doing the Deadeye Garuga. Felyne Insurance, which I've done a video on how to unlock, makes it so that the first cart during your online hunt does not count towards your 3, which is really good. And this is a really important skill for people who are just starting out, but even veterans as well. But if you're up against a monster that has the ability to one-shot you, eat for Felyne Moxie. What this does is if you get hit and you have 64 or more health, now imagine a full health bar is about 150 after a meal, so this is like 40% health or more. If you get hit and the hit would normally kill you, instead what it'll do just once during the entire hunt, it'll activate, but it'll leave you with 1 health point. So this will pretty much essentially save you from getting one-shotted once during the hunt, so very, very useful. Okay, now on to some of the final random ones. So we have Felyne Groomer. What this does is reduce the amount of time that you're affected by defense down or resistance down by half, and it also makes it so you only need half the buttons to break out of status conditions like Snowman. Felyne Fur Coating will negate any environment damage. This just means that if you're walking on lava or something, it won't affect you. You have Felyne Insomniac, which does negate sleep. This is one I see a lot of people not using, but if you're up against a Malfestio, just eat for Felyne Insomniac. It means that you won't be able to fall asleep. Of course, this means that you can't use the bed back at camp, but who cares? And then of course we also have Felyne Dung Master, which just means that dung bombs are always going to work. Throw a dung bomb and the monster will run away out of the area. Okay, and the final skills to cover are just some random ones again. Felyne Foodie just makes it so that you have food effects remain even if you cart. So if you eat for maximum health or maximum stamina or anything like that and you die, you'll go back and you'll still keep that effect, which is cool. Felyne Polisher just makes it so instead of 4 motions to sharpen your weapon, it'll be randomly either 1, 2, or 3 motions, which is cool. Felyne Acrobat just means that you'll have quicker recovery if you're sent flying by monsters. Remember, monsters, not hunters, so if you're still sent flying by like a greatsword, it's not going to help you get up. Felyne Feet just makes it so you don't fall on your butt, which has happened sometimes when you get hit by like the back leg of a monster. And then Felyne Fisher just makes it easier to fish, so only 1 bite needed for fishing, and you also need less action needed if you're catching a large fish. Absolutely nothing to write home about, but it's there nonetheless. Okay, and that's it. I'm sorry I jumped around a little randomly, but there's so many different meal skills, but I did see some common themes, so I wanted to group them. And I hope you learned something new. I certainly did while going through the list. There's certain themes that you just don't look at, and then when you do look them up, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting. For those of you who are curious how to unlock all the ingredients to unlock all the different meal skills, know that some of the meal skills only become available after you break your HR cap, which is to get beyond HR 7. But if you're also curious how to get all the ingredients that you need, here's a cheat list that I made from the strategy guide. I wrote it all back in English, so go ahead and take a picture of this and keep it on hand if you want to unlock all the ingredients in the game. Thank you again for watching. Please hit like if you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, happy hunting.